Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Goffstown Planning Board's regular meeting. This is Thursday, May 11th, 2023. As always, we start with our members that are here. I'll start with David.
David Pierce, I'm an alternate member.
Colleen Mayu.
Barbara Griffin.
Brian Measer.
Tim Redmond.
Scott Ozana, Town Engineer.
Philip DeBenza.
Joanne Duffy, Planning and Economic Development Director.
David, you'll be voting on all matters tonight, and Selectman representative will be here hopefully shortly. Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for taking my question. I get a point of clarification. Is there a reason why we don't start with the Pledge of Allegiance?
Never been done before. It's something we have never done.
Okay.
If we want to discuss that at a future meeting, we can
Okay.
discuss it, but we'll not discuss it tonight because it wasn't on the agenda.
Okay.
So if you'd like to make an agenda item, put a request into the Joanne, and she will take care of it for you.
Thank you.
Minutes from 4:13 and 4:27 have to be acted on tonight if we choose to, so I'll go to the minutes of 4:13. Anybody have any changes or corrections? Otherwise, I'll accept the motion.
Well, I'll make a motion to accept them so we can get them on the table to discuss. Those are the ones that we placed on the table, aren't they? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'll make a motion, take them off the table.
Second.
Take them off the table, what is that motion?
We
Well,
tabled
did we
them.
just not act on them?
No, I made a motion, it's a motion in the minutes that I tabled them.
Tabled it, yeah, okay.
So I'm making a motion to take them off the table so we can
Oh.
discuss them.
All
Right.
Thank you. Okay, it's been motion been made and seconded to take them off the table. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions, motion passes, so the minutes are back on the table.
Mr. Chair, I have a couple of minor
Please.
corrections.
That's why they tabled them. They
Yep.
wanted you
Right.
here
I saw that. I
to
appreciate
explain it.
that. Thank you. So I think they're fairly minor, but if anyone has questions about so on page 4 of 18, we have Colleen Mayu says she had a safety concern. We are 2% bought 100 feet. I believe that should be we require 2% for 100 feet for a reason. So I'd recommend changing those two words. The next sentence, what are the safety things mitigating cars? I believe it was safety measures mitigating cars. I don't think it changes the intent of anything. On page 5 of 18, last paragraph, the second sentence, this alternative was no part of the approved plan. I believe it was not, just a minor typo. And on page 15 of 18, Barbara Griffin said she finds the plan meets the requirements for a lot line adjustment. I believe she clarified subdivision, so I think it was a plan met the requirements for a subdivision. So nothing substantive, but just for clarification
Clean them up.
purposes.
Okay. So the corrections have been duly noted. Anybody else have anything they'd like to put into the record? Seeing so, I'll ask for a motion.
Motion to approve 13
Second.
April minutes.
Motion by Dave, seconded by Phil. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions? Motion passes. Okay, minutes of the 27th.
Motion to approve minutes, 27 April.
Second.
Okay, motion been made to approve the minutes of the 27th as presented. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions? 2 abstentions.
Who was the other one?
Colleen
Barbara
Mayu.
and Brian. I mean,
No.
Barbara and Colleen.
Colleen. Okay, the item 2 we're not going to discuss because it's been withdrawn. We have a copy of an email from Jim Raymond stating he wishes to serve on the senior committee as a community at large member. Do we have an extra position for a community at large member at this time, Joanne?
Yes, because Kimberly moved into the planning position.
So does that require a motion or do we just,
It requires a vote of the board to approve.
so I'll ask for a motion to approve Jim Raymond for a CIP membership.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made to approve Jim Raymond's request to serve on CIP as a community at large member. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion passes. Abstained, 1 abstention. And we already took action on number 4. It's been sending around, so when Dave's finished signing those, Phil will work their way over to you.
Yep.
And you can sign them.
And then pass them back to Tim so we can sign the second page of the top one.
Yes.
I missed one?
Second
There's
page.
2 of them for each.
Oh,
Right,
sorry.
right.
Trying to get it done faster. So we have nothing under old business. Tonight we have a new business, map 10, lot 10. Joanne?
Yes, so we have in front of you is a 5-lot, proposed 5-lot subdivision.
I thought it was a 4-lot I was looking at.
There's an open space
Oh, that's
lot.
the 5th lot?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're creating 4 new lots, but there's 5 lots.
Thank you.
This is located at the end of Tenney Road, and currently, the current owner owns that one parcel of land consisting of 53.5 acres. And they would like to extend the hammerhead, where the hammerhead is currently, turn that into a cul-de-sac and subdivide off these 5 lots. The open space lot, they're proposing to donate to Piscataquag Land Conservancy, and they're, on their end, they're negotiating, so it's not a done deal yet, but it's in the works. I don't know how far you want me to go at this point, but
Give us
it
the whole
is,
thing that you want to give us and then we'll move on.
Well, is the application
it is
complete?
complete, and
Is there any
there's
regional?
no regional impact.
Are there any waivers requested?
Yes, there are 3 waivers.
And do you think there's sufficient information in the application for us to deal with them during the review of the application?
Yes, I would say so.
Then I make a motion to accept the application as being complete without regional impact, accepting it for the waivers for acceptance purposes only.
Motion been made to find the application complete, ready for review, no regional impact, and accepting the waivers for the purpose of acceptance purposes only. Barbara made a motion, seconded by?
Second?
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. So at this time, does the staff, board members have any questions for staff before we begin, or DPW, town engineers?
I do.
I think I do.
All right, questions for you? You go first, Barbara.
Thank you. Joanne, how long has it been since we've had an open space application?
This is the first one since I've been here. It's
And how long have you been here?
5.5 years.
Wasn't Kennedy Hill's open space application?
That was
Before you?
That was, it's been quite a while, so,
What about John King?
That's what I was talking about. Kennedy
yeah,
Hill,
but
John
that
King
was
Drive.
long, it's gone on,
Okay.
but it was.
It was already approved.
Okay.
Before that. And are these documents that we've received for this application our documents, or are they the applicant's documents?
Documents as far as,
The cistern easement, there was
Oh.
the agreement for the language in the deed. Essentially, what of those documents, and if you know, Joanne, are form documents, and Scott, you may have input into that also. So there was a warranty deed, a cistern easement, is that our language or applicant language?
That is not our language.
Okay.
Not the road warranty deed. I don't know about the cistern one.
Okay.
I honestly, I didn't even notice those when I went back, and I didn't review them. But
Three
we
of them.
typically review those more towards the,
Well, it's been a long time, so before we started this, I wanted to know whether these documents were documents we had that our town council has reviewed, or in the course of developing them, or whether these were new documents, because I had some issues with some of them, and I'm not going to make an issue of it at this point, but I wanted that clarification.
so the warranty deed is from the owner to the Piscataquag Land Conservancy, so Conservancy would be the ones to review that deed.
I understand, but the town reserve, is it acknowledged that the town reserves some rights within, has some rights within that deed?
Yes, so no, so to
But this
answer your
is theirs.
question, it
This
has not been
Okay.
reviewed by anyone yet. the roadway deed, that would be something that, I keep looking there because Scott usually sits
Right
there.
over there.
Yeah,
You're on the
no,
wrong side.
And I apologize, I didn't realize this was,
That is something that the DPW department would look
Yeah.
over. And again, we're not to that point yet because there's
Yeah.
many issues with the plan itself. So we didn't review any of these documents yet.
Okay.
The cistern deed would be another deed that would be required from the fire department, so they would be involved with that. And the pedestrian access to the open space is something that is required because the way the plan was set up
Right, I am-
previously, there was no access to the
Okay.
open space. You would
All
have
right,
to go
I
on
just-
someone's property.
So these are not town documents and the town has not reviewed them?
Correct. They
Okay.
will be at some point, but they're not
Right.
now.
Okay,
Just
thank
as a
you.
point of clarification along those lines, do we usually do a roadway easement, or is it a warranty deed? Like, is the road deeded to the town, or do we just accept an easement?
Usually the road is deeded to the town.
Well, this
yeah.
is a prescriptive road here. They're deeding the area within the new cul-de-sac.
You could do
can
it
see-
either way.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
I just wasn't sure what our typical
But
procedure
the
is.
only section that will be deeded to the town is what's shown on the plans, because everything below that is prescriptive. So,
All right, thank you for that clarification.
Following up on that, on the plan comments on page 6, number 7, about a drainage maintenance agreement in the case the homeowner failed to maintain the pond. The question that I had for that is, how is that enforced? That's all, but we're not to that point, I guess. Just for
we'll get
one
to
thing.
that part of the
Yeah,
discussion.
because that was Scott's addition in there. And the comment that I have is, I mean, if you're gonna have an easement so that you can get in there, how do we enforce that? And then what stops the homeowner from saying, hey, listen, if there's an easement for the town to do it, I'm not gonna do it, the town will do it. So how do we get compensated
Yeah,
for?
that pond was one of the comments that I had that I don't think
What page is it on?
DPW wants
What
to
page is it on the plan?
take
Pond we're
ownership
talking
of that
about.
one.
I understand.
That one right there, so that pond.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions for staff or the Public Works Department before I ask the applicant to come to the table? Everybody good at the table here?
Can I just say a few more things
Please.
before you open it up to the applicant? So, as you probably remember, any open space subdivision requires a yield plan, which again, we haven't seen for a long time. That is the very last sheet of your plan set, is the yield plan. And I just had a few issues with reading the yield plan because there's just so much information kind of squished into this one area. It's hard to tell if the 100-foot wetland setback is leaning somewhat into the 80 by 100-foot potential building site, which is required. So we just need more information on that, or maybe a blow-up or something, because it's hard to tell. And I'm worried that there may be a potential infringement into the wetland buffer, and then that would require further approvals. The yield plan, as shown, it has 9 lots as a conventional subdivision. And there's no measurements for setbacks on that, so again, I wasn't sure if it truly could be 9 lots. There is information for the frontage and the size of the lots, but I didn't see setbacks included, so again, it was hard to determine. On the proposed plan, they're showing an easement for the cistern. However, the applicant has discussed with the fire department that they would prefer to do sprinklers in the homes. So the fire department wrote back and said that they have not worked that out yet. So that's another thing that's sort of up in the air right now. There's an existing duplex and an existing barn on 2 lots. One shows the 100-foot wetland setback going right through the duplex. At one point in time, they mentioned that building may be torn down and a house would be built there, but they weren't quite sure. So I just want you to pay attention to that, because if they were to build a house, they'd have to show the building footprint in another location because of that setback. They've also added a 20-foot wide access easement to the open space. However, they've added it down towards the bottom of the plan. You'll see the 60-foot vegetated buffer is shown, and then there's a hatched 20 feet. However, they're showing this path so you would come down Tenney Road, and then you would walk down this path in order to get to the land in the back. However, it's right in the backyard of Lot 10-22-1, and I don't think that's a great location for it. And if they prefer to have some sort of a 20-foot area like that, I would suggest it go on the other side where their own lot will be located versus somebody's existing house. Let's see. And then there's just a correction to the way the open space is, they have it as on page 2 of map 10, lot 10-OS. That stands for open space. That has to just be changed in the text. Scott has several comments, and that's one of the reasons why we're recommending that it be continued, because there's lots of things that need to be worked out with that. We have not yet received word from New Hampshire DES. This land does abut a prime wetland, so we have to receive something from them. And then Schaghticoag River Conservancy, again, they haven't made a final decision yet.
Regarding what?
Regarding whether they will accept the land.
Oh, that's fine.
And Conservation did recommend a vernal pool study be conducted, as well as a report from the Natural Heritage Bureau. There are 3 waivers to act on.
What are they?
The first one is frontage and setbacks. Because this is an open space, they can reduce the frontage to 25% of what's allowed, but not less than 50. And that's what they've done on 2 of the lots. None of the lots have the 200, but 2 of the lots have, one has 187 and one has 163. And then the open space has 81.1, and the other 2 lots have 50. So they all meet the requirements, but they do need a waiver.
For a waiver.
Yeah. And the second one is the vegetated buffer. This buffer shall be a minimum of 60 feet deep on town roads and a minimum of 100 on state. They did provide the 60-foot buffer, but not around the other side, the left side. If you're looking at the plan, it'd be on the left side of the cul-de-sac area because of that fire cistern being there if they do go with a cistern. So that's another thing they need to discuss with you. And the third is the contiguous area of the open space. It says at least 75% of the designated open space shall be contiguous, with no portion being less than 100 feet wide. And I guess it's less than that at some.
We'll let the applicant
point
explain
here.
the waiver stuff when
Okay.
the applicant comes up.
So that's it. And then, like I said, Scott has several comments.
Brian?
I had a question going back to waiver 1, if there's, I guess the applicant's asking for more relief, because when I was looking at the plan and seeing the proposed driveways, especially those that has small frontage, where the driveways will be kind of really close to each other, and they're not really, I can't really tell what the distance between them are, because I think you need at least 40 feet, right?
I think that goes out the door with the open space because
Is it?
the math doesn't work
Okay.
out.
But
Okay.
it also has to still meet the 10-foot from the lot line.
It does
The
meet the
10
10
foot.
foot from the lot line, but the separation doesn't.
Doesn't apply?
Yeah, if you have a 50 foot, 50 feet of frontage and you're allowed 22 feet wide at the right of way and then 32 at the actual opening of the pavement, the math just doesn't work out to
Okay.
ever make those driveways work. So There isn't anything explicit in the regs that say that, but,
Yeah,
I mean,
Well,
you can't tell them that they can.
if they have to be 10 feet from the property line, is that the barrel of the driveway or
We
the
could,
throat
but
of
we
the
might get
driveway?
in trouble.
It's measured at the right of way, so it's
So a
the,
32-foot opening doesn't fit in 50 feet with
Well-
10 feet on each side. 30
well,
feet
no, but the
fits.
32 is out at the road, it's not at the right of way line.
Oh, the right-of-way line.
Yeah. So, and it's the 22 max at the right
Gotcha.
of way
all
line.
right.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
All right, I guess we're all questioned out, most I've ever had, ever. So let's ask the applicant to come on up and identify himself for the record and whoever else may be with him. Speak slowly because this is going to be on tape and the secretary will record everything later.
A lot of these questions that you guys had asked,
We
I was
have
excited
names-
to
we
get
have
to.
names.
I'm going to do that right now, I'm sorry. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board, planning staff, and those present in the audience. My name is John LaFave. I work with Fieldstone Land Consultants. I'm here tonight to present a 5-lot open space subdivision for tax map 10 lot 10 on behalf of our client, David Klebanoff, who's with us tonight. Based on, hang on. We met with the Technical Review Committee on January 17th, 2023. Based on that meeting, we prepared a conceptual plan, which was presented to this board on February 23rd, 2023. I think you guys remember the first concept that came before the board. Tonight, I'm here to present our formal application.
Before you go any farther, we have two new members. Do you both know what was presented prior? Would you like a short briefing on it?
I would like a small briefing.
Could you
Yeah,
give a
Sure.
briefing, because we have two new members that just got elected.
Absolutely. So our first presentation.
Short is the key word in that sentence.
Okay, well, our first presentation, we had more lots, we had one more lot. And they wanted us to do some separation. One of the comments was that one of the lot lines was close to a buffer, and they wanted to see it moved. So we took all the comments into consideration. We had gone to TRC, and then we came here with the conceptual to get some comments and feedback from the board. So, in a nutshell, if you want it to be short, we dropped a lot.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Do you have any questions on that matter for either one of you?
Thank
No,
you.
thank you.
Good,
You're
thank you,
welcome.
Sean.
So tonight, we're here to present our formal application based upon those previous meetings. In addition to those meetings, we did attend a meeting with the Conservation Commission on April 26th. Couple things they brought up, I'll get to in a minute. The property is located at the dead end of Tenney Road, as mentioned. Zoning for the property is agricultural. There are conventional requirements and there are open space regulations. Open space requirements call for 2 acres of area with 200 feet of frontage. The open space regulations allow that to be reduced 25% of what's allowed in that district. We have taken that route with a couple of our lots and with our setbacks. The frontages are at minimum feet. The setbacks were reduced, I believe, to 15 foot. That's part of the proposal. Our previous concept plan, as mentioned a moment ago, was the 5 lots. We are now down to 4 residential lots within open space. The lots were reconfigured to be inside the 100-foot setback running through the middle of the property. This was discussed during the consultation that we had. There was a wetland finger.
Before you go any farther, Sean, anybody here to see the plan, he can turn a little more so you can actually see it if you're here for this applicant.
You right if I turn this one?
You're good,
Yeah.
because we all have plans.
Yeah, we have a
and
copy.
Awesome. Can you see that? Can you turn that on? So I'm just going to turn this for a minute and then I'll point back to you guys. Somebody else is good. There we go. So there's a buffer that runs inside that purple line. Before, we were actually closer to this wetland, and the comment was, can you put that lot line inside the buffer, which we did. So,
Now you have to tell it twice and show the people in the audience.
yes. Inside this purple line is a buffer which is 100 feet from the edge of this wetland. Our former lot line was on here, and we moved it inside that.
In the old days, we used to have the board right there where everybody could see it, but I don't know why we switched from that plan. We probably should go back to that in the future.
Might be because of the cameras.
Camera issue.
I don't
when
care
we
about the
first
cameras.
moved it.
People in the room here, they're here to see it, so. Cameras can move. Thank you. So continue, John.
Okay, so, and then during our consultation, it was mentioned that they wanted to see drainage as part of this subdivision, open space subdivision. So we did address, put in the plans to add sheets for grading, drainage, utilities. We understood they would have some comments likely after review, and we plan on addressing those. We're still waiting for review comments from the fire chief. It was our initial intention to put a cistern on the cul-de-sac. David had the thought that sprinklers, he'd like to see sprinklers instead. Is that possible? We've asked the chief, we just haven't received a response.
Okay.
He's been busy. He said that he hasn't had a chance to look at the plans yet. So,
Okay.
once we receive those, we'll let you know what those comments are.
Okay.
Conservation Commission did have a few comments, like mentioned. They had asked for an NHB report and a vernal pool study. We pulled the NHB. There is no species on our lot. There are some
Could
adjacent
you please tell
parcels.
people what NHB stands for?
National Heritage Bureau.
Thank you.
I apologize.
All right.
So I do have the results from the National Heritage Bureau. I could pass this to you, you guys can pass it around. But what they do is, you know, if there's any endangered species in the vicinity of the project, they tell you where they were reported, or if they were reported on your lot. There was nothing on our lot. It was, just gonna point this to you, as you can see, our lot's in the middle, and there's some adjacent lots, one in Dumbarton, one down here, I believe that's Shirley Patty Hill, whatever that is. And then some more down here, which is off of either Gorham or Snook. So I'll pass this around so you guys can see it. And I think what they saw was they saw the northern black racer, a Blanding's turtle, eastern hognose snake, and a northern black racer. Those are common species. A lot of times if you do a National Bureau, those are the hits you're gonna get. So while that's going around, I'll get to the waivers that we requested. The first waiver says that we are allowed by the open space regulations to reduce the setbacks so long as we meet the fire, our plan meets the satisfaction of the fire department. So I don't have those comments, and I imagine you probably want to see those before you support that waiver. But that's what that first waiver is about. We're asking for reduced setbacks. It does ask for a waiver.
The fire department did provide some comment. So
Do you have something I haven't
They have
received?
3 comments.
Why don't you read them into the record right now, Scott?
Okay, so the first one is, GFD will assign and adjust street addresses for each of the new lots as construction is underway.
It's not substantive.
New construction driveway placement and revisions to the cul-de-sac may cause the extinguishment of the revision of the current address of 102. Number 2, all driveways are to comply with the town of Goffstown and NFPA standards. Number 3, the applicant has requested that GFD consider fire sprinklers in lieu of cistern for this subdivision. As of this writing, we have not completed our evaluation of that request.
Okay, so
So-
I did see the address comments. I just didn't think they were worthy for discussion.
Yeah.
But yes, we're still waiting for the chief to say it's either sprinkler or cistern, and then at that point, you know, so long as he's happy, then I imagine you guys can then consider that waiver.
And for the purpose of this tonight's discussion, you do understand an NFPA is anything over 300 feet, correct?
Yeah,
So if the driveway's over 300 feet, you have a different standard you have to meet. So if you keep them under
Right.
300 feet, you don't have to meet the
we
300 feet.
understand. One of the so
You
right
don't-
now,
You just handle it if it comes up.
okay, very good. Waiver number 2, the vegetative buffer. It asks for 60 feet around the subdivision, and I'm gonna do this once more. So we do have the 60 feet all the way around, and then when we get to the place where we're expanding the cul-de-sac, we have the cistern going here. We have a driveway going here, we have a driveway going here, we have a driveway going here, we have a driveway going here. This is all gonna be woods, but it's subject to the open space trail. So that's why I was asking for a waiver, because we are at a dead end, and there's really minimal places to actually plant anything. And nothing's gonna change, it's just gonna be the cul-de-sac expanding. Right now, it's a hammerhead in the center of that cul-de-sac. We just made the circle for what's required. We're not really providing any more frontage, we're just making the hammerhead into a cul-de-sac. So once we do that, I mean, all the driveways are gonna be starting right there off of the cul-de-sac.
Have you shown on the plan exactly where you're looking for the waiver to be granted in that, for that 60-foot buffer?
I can,
It
I
needs
have
to, it
not.
needs to be shown, because we can't give you a blank check on the buffer.
I understand,
In a waiver without knowing exactly where you want the waiver to be applied.
I understand. And that's kind of what I was looking for was, you know, some direction from you on how to handle that waiver. So I will,
Well, you'd have to show on the plan the areas you're going to ask the waiver for.
Okay.
Because you also show the walking path easement, so you're looking for a 20-foot reduction on the whole buffer on the bottom side of the plan?
well, they asked for, the open space regulations ask for it to be a continuous pattern all the way around
Yeah, I hear you.
of the lot. And that's what I was trying to achieve by letting them get to the open space everywhere.
Right, but if you want to have a walking path within the 60-foot buffer, you're going to have to reduce the buffer then. That's my
Yes,
point.
yes.
So anywhere you want to
Yep.
reduce the buffer, you need to show it on the plan if you're going to ask for a waiver for that portion of that,
Understood.
okay?
Yep, I'll take care of that. I just want to make a quick note if you don't mind.
Fine, take your time.
So our third waiver was for the contiguous area. It's not the area that we're asking for the waiver for. As a matter of fact, 50% of the net tract is supposed to be open space. Well, 50% of the tract is supposed to be open space, and that's supposed to be net area. Right now, we have 60% of the lot that's going into open space, and 54% of that is net area. And that's because we had taken, once we take these lot lines and bring them in, that enlarges this already now, so we're already at 60% right here. So when we had this, where it was a suitable means for them to actually go into the open space, that's why we're asking for the reduction. If we actually added another 40 feet to that, it would visibly take away, you know, more
Excuse me
area.
one second, Sean. We'll have a public comment part later when you can ask questions.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, we live on the road.
Fine, I'm
I
happy.
live right down the street. How are you?
I'm good.
So it's right here. So you purchased this from,
Yes,
okay,
Dave.
yes. So it's that sliver right here. They're asking for 100-foot wide. We're asking them for it to be 60 feet wide.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Actually, no, we want to keep it over here. Oh, I don't. Stay. So that's the third waiver that we'd asked for.
Before you go any further, all the board members understand the waiver and what they're asking for in the waiver, within the waiver, because it's pretty complicated what they're asking for. It's not straightforward. We're talking percentages and
I was just letting you know
this, that,
that
and the other thing. I want to make sure
100
everybody
feet.
understands.
100 feet is required for a continuous width. We're going to have that portion, we'd like it to be 60 feet because we're donating so much more land to the open space.
Just make sure everybody was clear on
Yep.
your request. Thank you.
The documents that you were inquiring about before, we went through the subdivision checklist and, you know, it asked for all these things. So it was we took a crack at it, basically.
Okay.
We submitted these documents, we understood that they're gonna, you know, go through legal review, we're gonna have some comments, so understand that they're draft and we appreciate any comments that we receive. The Scatacog Land Conservancy, we did make contact with them. It was the Conservation Commission's request, along with, I believe, this planning board, that it would be great for the Scatacog to have that land because they have an adjacent piece. They said before they can put any funds into taking a piece of land, they have to understand, you know, is it gonna happen? You know, they wanted to see the project a little further along before they would make that commitment. So, I mean, they're on board. I'm gonna meet with them next week, hopefully. Maybe I'll have some better news to report to you or additional news to report to you, but at this time I don't have anything more on the Scatacog. And then I don't think I had any other comments. Were there anything else that comments you guys had brought to the
When
beginning?
when you've completed your presentation, I'll ask board members
Okay.
to ask questions. So you just let us know when you, because you can always go back.
Yeah,
This
no,
is not a
I-
cut and dried
I
deal.
understand. I
Sort
think
of.
I've covered all the topics that I wanted to present to you, and then if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take those.
So board members, you have any questions for the applicant at this time? Barbara?
Where's the adjacent Piscataqua parcel?
It's Eleanor King's property, which is
Oh,
gonna be all this land right here. And they go way down, all the way down to Route 13, back up to Dunbarton
It's
Town
the one
Line.
the Conservation Commission was in here.
it just did that.
Yeah, they were just in
okay.
here last week telling us about it.
PLC took that?
Yeah, PLC's taking that over.
Back over.
Yeah.
It's gonna be like Stanhope's. See if Eleanor King, the where the-
If you got your packet, you can see there was a worksheet in there that had all the numbers. in it.
No, it's just, I had forgotten because I was thinking about the King property.
Oh, that's right, you weren't here last week, were you?
Okay, any other questions for the applicant, Caroline?
So I've got a question, the lot with the existing duplex.
Yes.
So the duplex may or may not be removed. I'm just a little bit concerned, I don't know if you have a building footprint.
We do.
But only if we grant the waiver on the 60-foot buffer, right?
No.
Not- Okay,
So, well, we have a 15-foot setback,
yep,
and then we also have, as you can see, what's required is that we show an 80 by 100 building area.
yep.
Those are those gray areas. So it does fit within the setbacks.
But if you put that so if, we would need to waive the 60-foot vegetative buffer in that section for you to get that,
Possibly, I haven't looked at that
Okay.
scenario.
okay.
That's 10-10-1, Colleen?
Yeah, no, 10-10-2. I guess I just want to verify that you could have the 60-foot buffer and still
I'm
get a
gonna, I'm gonna
building
look into
setback.
that.
Yep.
And be able to answer those questions. I have to understand potentially where these drivers are gonna be and do little calculations, and I'll come back with you guys and let you know where we're anticipating waivers.
Okay. There's no intent then on, because I know it looks like there's buildable area on the other side of the wetland. There's no plan for any wetland crossing or for
No,
any driveway?
no,
or anything
that's just
like
more, just somebody has some
Yep.
piece, you know.
that? Okay, thank you.
Actually, the applicant could make their case tonight for saying no,
Okay,
but it doesn't preclude a person in the future from applying to DES
Yep.
to make a dredge and fill permit to access their land in the back. That's beyond our
Yep.
grasp that tonight. Other board members? I had a question for you. At a prior meeting, there was a mention of renovating the old Feather Factory barn into a residence. Is that still on your plan, or is that going bye-bye?
I think it's just it's a decent structure. There's a lot to it. It's a shame to see it just get torn down. I think that somebody would appreciate it either as, you know, for a livestock, maybe they want to have a horse there, something to that degree. Our plan is to leave it with the lot.
So there's room to get past it and
Yes.
construct a new home behind it?
Yes, yep,
Okay.
and those show up on the other
Because it
swing
is,
plans you see.
it's not the best-looking building in town.
It does have some significant history behind it.
History. That's a good way of putting it.
Character.
Okay, any other members have questions at this time? All right, so if nobody has any questions for the applicants, I'm gonna ask you gents to slide on back into the gallery, and we're gonna open a public hearing.
Thank you. Can I just make one more comment if you don't
Sure,
mind?
go ahead. You're gonna be able to come back up. You're not-
Yeah,
you're
I
not-
just wanted to let you know, the concept plan, I didn't understand that you guys wanted to have all the meets and bounds and everything on it. It was more of a yield plan. That does in fact, I can show you blow-ups. I can give you blow-ups if that's what
Okay.
you want to see. I just wanted to address that comment that Joan had made, so.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.
So at this time, we will open the public comment, the public hearing. And anybody who would like to speak, just come up, give us your name, and tell us what you feel like saying.
Hello,
Hi.
Hello?
Maisie Tower, and I am actually lot 1022-1.
We saw you last time.
Yes, exactly. So I'm back again because, like you so eloquently put, I'm gonna have a trail literally in my backyard. And now it's 20 feet, not 60. But from my understanding from watching the conservation It's gonna be leveled, there are gonna be signs that go up, and it's going to be literally in my backyard. I mean, the diminished value of my house, going from a nice wooded area to, I guess, tracking people through what looks like my backyard. Unfortunately, when they built that house, they built it like exactly where it needed to be, 65 feet or whatever off of that stone wall, so. The privacy will be null if the path goes there.
The problem is that he needs to provide a 60-foot buffer, but by adding that walking path, he's putting it like closer to the home, so
Yeah.
the woods will diminish by, instead of having 60, she's really having only 40.
Well, we should talk about alternatives
Right.
tonight.
Yeah.
We don't have to accept what they're presenting. So we can talk about alternatives after we hear our public comment, and we can act on that.
That was my biggest concern, was actually my lack of privacy now with that path going through what almost looks like my backyard. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Anybody else? Come on, you come up. No? Mark, not you? All right. Anybody else want to speak at the public hearing tonight? Seeing none, we'll close public hearing. This is only closed for this evening. Any future meetings will include more public hearings. So, does the board want to discuss this a little bit? And then the applicant and the owner can come on back up if you can answer questions.
Thank you.
So based on what I just heard from our neighbor there, the towers, and the fact that you're asking for a waiver for the width of the buffer, the 60-foot buffer, I think you should consider putting the trail on one of these building lots and let the landowner that is going to buy the lot have the trail on their land and let them be the person who has the privacy, lack of privacy, as people walk across their land to get to the open space and not the neighbors.
We are fine with that. My only thought was that it said, continuity, and I'm like, how do I do this? They want to see it all the way around, so
I'd like to see
Understanding that,
I'd like to see the 60-foot buffer remain as part of the regulation.
I'm happy to find an
So if you
alternative
can
location.
find a way to move
Yep,
that trail so that
absolutely.
it is on one of your building lots, I think you'd make the neighbors happy as well.
Yeah, I'd probably put it between lots 2 and 3. Yeah.
Now,
I didn't hear the Scatic blog say anything more than they wanted to put a trail.
Now, along
added
with
to the
that,
trail,
does anyone feel you need to supply any sort of parking for vehicles that are gonna wanna access that area? Because they're just gonna have to park on the edge of Tenney Road in order to walk, or they're gonna end up parking in the cul-de-sac. So I'm just wondering where we're gonna have people parking that wanna access that trail too. That's just something to consider as part of the discussion tonight.
I'll just comment that it's part of my issue with the open space ordinance in this town at this point. You are creating nice backyards for people that, as a practical matter, the public does not have access to. So I don't think the neighbors want to encourage use of the property by providing a big parking area. I know we talked about one of the last land conservancy grants as to parking, but they're talking about more wooded areas with gravel parking off the road, and you go by it and there's nobody there. I don't particularly want to put parking in for these neighbors, but people, personally, I'd like a big parking area. I'd bring my horse and the trailer over and I'd park it and I'd go riding, but, I don't think from a planning perspective that's appropriate. So, I don't know what you do without the parking situation, because I think you're allowed to park on the side of the road in Goffstown, and I think that's what people would end up doing.
Well, from my perspective, we're talking about creating a new cul-de-sac, and we're providing an access area for people to get to the open space. I think we should also provide an area for people to park to make it safe, so that they're not all parked in the cul-de-sac, and for one, blocking one of these people's driveways. For two, being in the way of a fire engine that may want to get to the cul-de-sac to put out a house fire. So if we're talking about the vegetated buffer on the left side of Tenny Road as you approach the new cul-de-sac. I would be in favor personally of some sort of reduction in the vegetative buffer right in that very short stretch of the new cul-de-sac line to provide a little parking, 1 or 2 spots for people to be able to at least get a car off the road.
Yeah.
Phil?
Yeah, I had a thought on that. I mean, there's an area in there for a cistern. And if the
That's what's
cistern,
not there.
If the cistern goes in,
but if the cistern doesn't go in,
then it's,
Then you could have parking.
I agree, and, you know, we're just waiting for the chief on that, hearing you, that you want some parking, we'll address that.
well, the board would discuss with you the vegetative buffer reduction in that small area to accommodate a parking area.
Understood.
If, under the same reason, we would discuss a cistern parking area. Because if you put a cistern in, the fire department is gonna put up no parking signs in front of the cistern,
Yeah. I know.
for obvious reasons.
Get it.
So you'd have to figure out how you might make that work out for everyone's.
Once I get their direction, then I can proceed and figure out how we're gonna handle that. Thank you.
Anything else from board members then, Colleen?
Mr. Chairman, only, and I think it's maybe kind of uncharted territory, I guess, on the parking. Who would be responsible for maintaining a?
Nobody.
So the
Nobody's
town,
responsible for it.
so.
It's just a patch of grass on the edge of the road and people are gonna pull in there, believe me. We're not gonna put, well, if a cistern goes in, then the town becomes responsible to maintain the parking in front of the cistern for the fire engine. But not if it's a little parking area for cars. People are gonna have to find their way off the
And
edge
if
of the
people
road.
put up things to block the parking, who deals with that?
I think we could talk with the Piscataqua Lane Conservancy when that time comes too, because we could probably ask that they receive an easement for parking. And I'm sure they would love that.
Yeah,
That to be-
yeah.
That
I
would
think
give-
they
that
did
would
that
give
on
that a little
another,
teeth.
they did
Yeah.
that on
Yeah.
another
Yeah.
parcel.
Okay.
That would give that parking blocking a
Yep.
little teeth
Yep.
to allow people to park there.
Okay.
Just make sure it's big enough for your horse trailer.
There are some nice trails up there.
Well, I know a few neighbors who let you park in their driveway, Barb, it's not a problem. All right, anybody else have any more questions? Phil?
just a question on this report. Now, I know you said something that there was nothing further from Fish and Game on this, is that?
The Heritage Bureau.
Right,
The
right.
Heritage Bureau did send something to Fish and Game.
Right, okay.
But this doesn't trigger, it was a courtesy to provide the NHB to the Conservation Commission. This project doesn't involve us to actually submit to NHB unless we are doing a wetland crossing or doing some impacts, and that then it becomes a requirement for NHB. It was just a courtesy. They asked us, can we pull NHB? We said, sure.
Okay, well, I guess my question is on some of the information that's on these pages. It says, please note portions of this document are confidential. Maps and NHB record pages are confidential and should be redacted from public documents. I don't know if any of that information is in here because this is handed out in a public meeting.
Well, I was simply
And-
handing it for you guys to take a look at where the,
Well, I understand,
Yeah.
but now it's part of the record.
okay,
Okay, and then I got some pages in the back here. They say confidential on the bottom. But I have some questions. And one of the things is, that's stated is that New Hampshire Fish and Game has jurisdiction over rare wildlife in New Hampshire. Please contact them. So I don't know what the meaning of that is, or do they need to be contacted?
No,
Because
so-
on these confidential pages, there's a couple of things that
They-
making
they
me
do-
question it.
they do not need to be contacted. It's a standard thing that if we had been, you can just pull an NHB on the property if you're the owner. But if you're doing something like AOT permit, wetland crossing, anything like those measures, that's when they come in and they say, okay, these species are there. How is their space going to be violated or something to that degree? That's when they come into the picture, if they're on your property. So, I mean, that's a standard NHB report. That's just, they all say the same thing.
They pretty much do.
They do.
Yeah.
Well, I just
And
have
you
a
could-
question of some of the wildlife, the comments on some of the wildlife that's on it. That's all. I don't know what the jurisdiction has to do with the,
Like I said,
Fish
it was
and
a
game.
courtesy. The Conservation Commission asked us.
I understand, but it's a document that's presented here And I have it, and those are the questions that I have.
Okay.
Because I don't know if Fish and Game needs to be contacted. I have no clue, no idea. I'm just going by what's on the document that
Understood.
was.
Yeah, they don't
handed
need to be contacted, and there was one requirement that we actually, as part of the subdivision checklist, send a copy of the plan set to the NHDES. We did do that. I included the certified mailing and the letter as part of our application, so I don't know if you guys had seen that as well. I haven't received any comments from them. If I do, I'll share them with you.
So I'm reading the DPW comments, and they're proposing that you apply for a waiver for the drainage appendix section. Are you aware of that waiver that you're asking you to apply for?
My engineering team has not had a chance to digest the
As long as
comments.
you knew about it?
I did read it.
Yeah,
Yes, but
it's really a formality. We don't typically want to see curbing in a cul-de-sac because it actually makes it harder to maintain.
Okay,
But because it's a requirement for all subdivisions that we have curbed roadways and closed drainage, you just need to request the waiver.
Okay.
DPW will recommend the board approve it. Whether or not they do, it's up to them. So it's really just a formality. at
okay.
that point.
Well, when we get to, when I get to bringing this over to my engineering team, I'm gonna have them contact you and,
Yeah, I want to talk to them about the grading of the
Sure.
cul-de-sac and everything too, because right now it's graded as like this, so the water's going to go to the center and sheet towards the pond, and that's
they'll be able
that's
to
an
address
us
all your
issue,
comments.
so-
It's just what do you
Yeah.
prefer? I know there's a starting point, and that's what we presented to you.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, no, it gives us something to look at and comment on. So
Yep, they'll be getting a hold of you
Yep.
in the next week or so before we have to get materials back in.
The only way that works is we put a catch basin in the center and pipe it to the detention pond. Under this point, what you're talking about.
the way it's graded now, yeah.
And the other thing, number 7, I don't like number 7, I apologize to you at DPW. The bioretention pond closest to the cul-de-sac, the responsibility of the homeowner to remain. Well, we all know that's not gonna happen. That will never happen.
Well, that's what my question was on that. So if you have that in there, okay, and I'm reading that, and I'm the homeowner, I'm gonna say, well, why do I have to
That's right.
spend the money and the time to do it? I just won't do it, and Public Works will do it.
Well,
So you just did that up on Chatel, that 3-lot subdivision. I think it was Chatel.
a bioretention pond?
No, there were swales in front of it, so the swales along Chatel
Yeah.
are required to be maintained by the homeowner, so that's kind of why
I
I
think a
was,
swale can be maintained with an iron rake
yeah.
and a shovel, which a
We
homeowner
just-
all own. But to,
DPW can't keep up with the ones we have
Right.
now. This one takes a bunch of private water, not just the cul-de-sac. It's taking water all the way from this driveway over here, half of these ones, and some water here. So I thought,
well, the only way that works is if you have some kind of a homeowners association and there's money that's collected to pay for that kind of stuff.
Right, or from an outside firm.
But to put it on one homeowner is a no-win situation.
Well, I guess DPW's comment is, we don't want responsibility for this.
Right.
And that's basically what it comes down to.
Unfortunately, in all past practices, whenever any drainage from any subdivision is approved, DPW owns the drainage from that point forward. It's always been like that. All the ponds that are in backyards, these big, large ponds for subdivisions, that's why DPW has gravel roads built to them so they can get their equipment back there to maintain them. Now, understandably, you're saying you don't have the time and the energy and money to do this, but it's part and parcel of a subdivision plan, unfortunately.
okay.
I'm
can-
just saying that, because this is how it's always been in the
Yeah.
past.
And haven't we started having that recorded on the deeds?
What's that for?
Haven't we started having those comments recorded on the deeds that
You're
needs to
talking
be?
about drainage maintenance agreement?
Well, it's mentioned on the deed, so that it's recorded and it goes with the deed, that there is a responsibility for the property owner to maintain that.
I don't remember ever putting that.
We've done that a few times. Because it's the only way that it's gonna be there. It's the only way that when they go for their mortgage, whenever it's brought up and it's researched, it comes up there and it's understood by all parties that there's a responsibility to maintain that.
And then when they don't maintain it and Public Works has to go out and fix it, what happens then? Public Works bills the homeowner for their work?
That was my question.
Yeah.
How do you enforce that? And if I had an agreement like that and I was the homeowner,
I wouldn't buy the lot.
it's either that or I wouldn't do it and say, well, Public Works will do it, it's right there in the agreement. But
We need to flush this out too before we make a final decision on this application tonight. Whether it's in a future meeting or whatever, we need to have a discussion, more discussion about this.
Scott, can I ask, you mentioned that this is mostly private water, maybe some public water from the road as well. Is it from several different lots going to one?
It is from several different
So-
lots. It actually goes, so, it's number one, some of that driveway runoff follows a ditch on the, looks like, east side, and then travels under culverts, under the lots for 10, or for 2, 3, and 4, and ultimately ends up at the pond. So really water from all the lots. Not, I mean, it's not the whole thing. Portions of the lots shed back
Yeah, but-
towards the
So there really should
wetlands.
be a drainage easement then.
They requested, they suggested one, and
Okay.
they have the draft document in here.
It-
And that's what the hatch is too.
Could
is
be
the
that as
police.
part of that drainage easement, working out including the maintenance and, I mean, no matter what, it's still gonna end up being that
Yeah.
if they fail to, metain the bioretention basin, then they're
There
gonna
is
have an
no
issue in
they.
the future.
There is no they in an
So
open
if
space
it's,
development.
I mean, if it has to be DPW, it has to
Well,
be
there's
DPW.
other avenues. I'll let Brian
Yeah, I
speak
think
and then I
it could-
would like to address it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for taking my question. I guess my question was, has the previous board actually did a site walk on this property?
We rarely do sidewalks,
Okay.
to be honest with you. If you want to schedule a sidewalk, we're happy to have Joanne schedule a sidewalk.
Okay.
But as a rule, it's hard to get people to have the time to go for sidewalks because a lot of people have jobs and daytime is when sidewalks generally occur.
Okay.
Sometimes on weekends.
Submission of the plan allows us individually to investigate.
Absolutely.
Yeah, access, yeah.
Yeah, access.
It is nice on these bigger properties to have someone there with you
So
to
we-
show you what
Yeah.
you're looking at.
Right.
Yeah.
We have in other times required remediation of driveway water on their site with small bioretention ponds on the site, which now the homeowner is responsible for because it's the homeowner's driveway water.
Yeah.
I would be in favor of you trying to find a way to mitigate the water on each site with a small bioretention for each driveway, and then the culvert that goes around the cul-de-sac would take the sheet flow from the cul-de-sac to the bioretention area on the cul-de-sac, which would make it solely water from the town road that is going into the bioretention.
Which would still be an easement for the town. You'd love to have that as part of the cul-de-sac to be able to.
The easement would be
maintain that.
granted to the town because you're gonna deed those property with meets and bounds.
I think this is something that we can work out.
I just think you need to think about how we
Sure.
can get the Public Works happy and get us happy and
Sure.
get you happy.
Yeah, no, I'm taking this all in. and,
So, if you can find a way to take the water from the driveways and put a small bioretention on each of the sites that each homeowner is responsible to maintain, because I'm pretty sure that a small bioretention area that a homeowner owns, they're probably gonna go out there with their iron rake and fix the mulch and keep it working, as opposed to one that's on the edge of the road that everybody is flooding with all the water. And that would help alleviate your comment that all the water is coming from the lots as well. If you could separate the town water from the lot water
I'm with you.
somehow,
I'm with
maybe
you.
there's a way that it could be worked out.
There is one thing that would be very beneficial. When we had come before the board previously, I know one of the board members had mentioned they do not want to see common driveways.
No, we don't like them, at least I don't. There's other members that may have their.
Well, we have two driveways running parallel with each other, which could be one driveway, which would significantly reduce the drainage.
Yeah.
And just
And-
throwing that out there, David,
It would significantly increase the argument between the two homeowners when they have to pave it.
I'm just throwing it out there. I was just wanted to get, your take on that because we could reduce some drainage.
I would not be in favor of that.
Speaking of which, do we have a drainage study on this property that shows that the pre and post development would,
We do.
we do have one?
Yeah,
Good,
there's
thank you.
some, I have some comments on it that we need to
So there's some time needed to work this stuff
Yeah,
out.
yeah,
and
there's
everybody's
some-
willing to
We
do it.
understand that. I'm gonna have a conversation with the engineering department, our department, their department. We'll find a direction, we'll handle it, you know, so.
All right. I would like the board to give some straw opinions without giving a decision on the waivers, so the applicant can have some guidance on the waiver request. So waiver 1 is about the frontage and setbacks. It is allowed within the standards, and they have met the standard within our standards. Does anybody have a problem with this waiver that they can see that is going to, we could verbalize to the applicant at this time? Okay, sounds like everybody seems to go along with it. Waiver 2 about the vegetative buffer, I think you've already heard loud and clear about the
Yes.
vegetative buffer.
I took the notes down. We're gonna have to identify the areas where we are seeking the waiver and give you reasoning for the areas that we don't.
And waiver 3, the contiguous area, you've made a good discussion about the 100-foot size. Does anybody at the board here tonight have any big problems with the request for the contiguous area waiver? As it applies, I guess it applies to the vegetative buffer, is that correct? Is that where the,
The vegetative buffer is still gonna be there. It's just the width that they asked for, the open space be so wide for the entire lot.
Right.
And when we're trying to achieve giving it access, because we've already given up 60% of a lot, we're just asking for a reduction in the width.
yep, so if that seems to be something, so if it sounds like you work on the vegetative buffer and you seem to be pretty well settled on those other ones, barring any new issues.
Okay. Thank you.
And you have the comments from DPW. You said you have the comments from DPW, you're in contact with Scott, so we're only waiting on the fire comments for you
Right, once
to
I
make a
get
decision
some,
on the cistern?
I think we need to have a decision from the fire chief before we can then go everywhere else, because we're gonna have some gravel parking now,
Right,
which is
that
gonna be
affects
part
that.
of the drainage calculations, and we need to know where that's going before we can actually go everywhere else, so.
Well, it might, if you're gonna reduce drainage from the lots and add a little bit of parking, you might end up with a positive balance
Well, I
somehow.
think that gravel's still impervious, so it might just increase that area, so
Right.
of retention,
You
I'm
work it
just,
out.
I don't know how it's gonna calculate, I'm gonna leave it up to the engineering team, but I'm gonna put a call into the chief, tomorrow, Monday,
Good.
and I'll see if I can get him to expedite an answer for me, so we can take a direction.
Any other board members have any questions or comments for this applicant at this time? My question for you is, how much time do you think you need to get together and get back here? Meeting-wise, we have a meeting on the 25th and June 8th. How soon would you request to be able to come back?
I'd like to go for the 25th, and if I haven't received enough time to come here prepared, I will ask that my,
When's it-
ask for a continuance or to be tabled for that
The
evening.
only thing I'm concerned about with that type of a plan is that when you ask for continuance, sometimes the word doesn't get to the people that are coming to the meeting, and I don't want people to plan to come to a meeting when you're gonna ask for, when a continuance has been asked for. So, honestly
This stuff
speaking-
should be very easy to address. My engineering team should be able to, come up with all the drainage and stuff.
Yeah.
Scott time to
Yeah,
review.
no.
It's not only the review time, we have to mail
The
everything out to you
package.
guys a
Yeah.
week ahead.
Yeah.
It
So
needs to
that's
go to the
already-
June 8th.
yeah.
I know you want to get it approved, but it really needs to go to June.
Okay, so we'll aim for June 8th, based upon the comments from
And
the
then it
board.
will be, everything.
There's an
will be
open
done.
meeting that night too, there's no other applications on that night at this time, so maybe it'll work out.
Or I can
So-
be first?
So can I have a motion? You will be first.
Well, old business, you will
The
be
only one out
first.
there, yeah.
You'll be all alone. So I'd like to get someone a motion to continue to the 6/8 meeting.
So moved.
Colleen? Seconded by
Right.
Brian. Okay, any discussion on the motion to continue this application to June 8th? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstentions, motion passed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you. We'll go outside and chat.
Yeah, please, if you're gonna have a discussion, don't have it in the hallway, it
Yep.
echoes back in here.
You got you.
around.
Thank you, Jim.
Good night.
Take care.
Aye.
See you, Mark.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay, our second application is a subdivision request for map 14, lot 68. Joanne?
So this particular project is actually across the street from the subdivision that you saw a few months ago on Heald and Ivy, or I'm sorry, Heald and St. A's. This one is located right across the street on the corner of Heald and Ivy. So it's currently, map 14, lot 68 contains a single-family home with a pool and a patio area in the back. They would like to subdivide the lot into 2 lots and add another home, which would become map 14, lot 68-1. The plan itself shows.
Is is the application complete?
Yes, it is, and
Is there
there's no
any-
regional impact.
And there are 4 waivers requested. Did the applicant provide the waiver information necessary for those requests?
Yes, they did.
I'll make a motion to accept this application as complete, find it has no regional impact, and note that the acceptance as to the waiver requested is for acceptance purposes only.
I'll second that.
Okay, anybody want to discuss that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Okay, Joanne, could you please continue if you'd like?
Sure. So the driveway would, for the new house, would come off of Ivy Street, and each lot would meet the minimum is 10,000 square feet for the lot size, and each one house would have 12,061 square feet, and the other would have 10,939 square feet. However, there is a notation that on the new lot that says proposed duplex, which needs to be removed because they don't have enough land in order to do a duplex. So I've explained it to the owner, and he would like to go forward, and he may request a variance at some time to allow for a duplex, but that has nothing to do with this board.
Would that trigger a rehearing on the application?
No, it would
Well,
not.
it certainly would matter, because if we were to consider this plan with a 22-foot wide driveway and a duplex goes in, I see what's going on down on Angel Point. I would not accept a 22-foot wide driveway for a duplex. There's not enough parking here, right out the gate. I can see it. I went down on that other property the other day because I've been watching it, and I think we were assured that it was not going to be a problem by the applicant, and I did a little car count, and it's way more than I think it should be. So in the event that they want to do a duplex, possibly, we're going to need to see a bigger driveway shown or some parking shown.
That's the max width that they can do.
Well, then, I will...
Well, once they get on the property, they can go wider, but
Just
if
because
they go wider, it's...
All right,
gonna
why
become
are we
hard
talking
to-
about a duplex? We don't have a duplex in front of us.
No,
and
but I don't want to consider a plan with a 22-foot
Well,
wide...
I would like to say I don't want to consider a plan ultimately to approve that has a duplex on it that has not had a variance granted.
So if they do grant the variance, they could be contingent upon coming back for a new driveway location
Or
whatever they
we could-
modified driveway.
Or we could not accept this, which we already have, and if they want to go get a duplex variance, go get the variance, and then come back with the plan that
They
we can do.
can't grant the variance on a lot that's not yet.
Doesn't exist. They
Yeah.
have to do the subdivision.
That's why
So-
they're here first,
So we have to do the subdivision first.
yes. Because
Okay.
otherwise, there's no lot
Yep.
to speak of.
Okay. So we'll do it by that matter then.
Okay.
Manner, excuse me. Thank you, everyone. Go ahead.
So they are asking for 4 waivers. One is approved turnaround suitable for a fire truck, which we all agreed
Yeah, we've seen that before.
doesn't really need to be there. The wetland delineation, a drainage study, and erosion control standards. And there's one notation on the side of the building envelope should be changed to read 10 feet for pavement, not 6.5. Conservation Commission stated there are no environmental issues of concern. They consider drainage to make sure it is properly treated on the lot, no additional runoff is created. So they were recommending that the town engineer review the drainage. So they're asking for a waiver of the drainage, and Conservation is asking for a review of the drainage.
Have we asked applicants in the past to provide pre- and post-development runoff for house lots?
For subdivisions, yes. For single lot, it seems,
Excessive.
yeah.
Except that we have to make sure that we don't create a situation where the lot generates so much water that it can't handle the water. We've asked applicants to put drains around the foundations,
Yeah, they could do.
drip drains and things like that.
Yeah, I think I
Help mitigate water.
requested some infiltration trenches along house
Something.
overhangs.
We had that issue on Orchard Street,
Okay.
and we had a concern about it, and the concern is, I mean, they are small lots, but the runoff and the drainage in the area is critical.
Guess it's a DPW comment
All right,
number 6.
we can get into this more when the applicant comes up. And the erosion control standards, I want to talk about that too, when the time comes. All right, anybody have any questions for Joanne, or Joanne, are you finished? Sorry, I didn't ask you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any questions for staff from board members or questions for DPW? If not, we'll ask the applicant to come up and state their name for the record, and we'll go from there.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, staff from the town. My name's Eric Forcier, and I'm
Anastasia Forcier.
so we're both longtime Goffstown residents.
Okay, thank you. What was your name again?
Anastasia.
Anastasia, thank you. Okay, would you like to fill us in on what you'd like to tell us?
Sure. So I don't have an extra copy to put up here, but I do have an extra copy to provide the SNES if you like. Okay, good. So what we have here is we bought a home 2 years ago, April 2021. We would like to subdivide the backyard. I recognize now that I got a little bit ahead of myself putting a duplex on there. But I only found out a couple days ago that I was unable to put a duplex on, otherwise I would have resubmitted plans. But I am prepared to submit a plan that shows a single family lot there for purposes of getting it past the planning board. But I will say, because I can't help myself with respect to the driveway, I recognize what you're saying, that a 22-foot wide driveway, as pictured here, may only have 2 vehicles there. I have an idea of a duplex that sits back further that will allow 2 cars per side in addition to the garage space. So I'm hoping, I know this is not for today necessarily, but I was looking at that and thinking to myself, a different duplex that I'm looking at will not be as deep, and that'll provide more frontage for a longer driveway than my hope is 4 cars.
Let me interrupt you for a minute. Do our regulations allow for individual driveways for each duplex, Scott or Joanne? Would that require a waiver?
I don't think they fit on the frontage of the lot.
Would it require a waiver of some kind from a regulation to put individual driveways for each
Well,
side of?
Then we wind up with the separation of driveways.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I think would be the issue there. Is that
But they've already met their maximum width for the driveway entrance, right, Scott?
Yes.
They can't make the driveway any wider.
No, so you're thinking 2 separate ones.
It would
I don't
have
think
to-
they have the frontage.
It would have to either be deeper, or you'd have to have parking within the front yard for vehicles that would go to the sides, or however you work it out with your engineer.
Thank you for that feedback. So does it make sense 2 vehicles per side is what you'd be looking for?
Well, we don't want people parking in the street, that's what we don't want.
Understood.
I think the zoning ordinance requires 2 spaces per unit, correct?
There you go.
Yeah.
Does a garage space count as one of the two spaces?
They do
Yes,
try to
it
pull that
does,
off,
actually.
except that when one car's in the garage and the other one parks behind it. Now
Oh,
I
believe
can't
me.
get out, so they park their car in the street all the time.
I hear you. I was just curious if technically a garage space counted as one of the two.
It does count.
Good to know, but I still recognize your comments.
We can't ask you technical comments because you're not the promised land survey person who prepared the plan.
Understood?
So if anybody has any technical questions, we'll have to get them to you, and you'll have to either get answers with a revised plan, or you're gonna have the engineer or the land surveyor come back in with you to answer any technical questions tonight.
Mr. Chair?
David?
Joanne, did you receive an email about groundwater in this area?
Not to my knowledge, no.
I'm aware of, with the discussion of an abutter, that the groundwater is very high to the surface and flows well. And so that's something for your site engineer to consider. Promised Land is construction problems due to high groundwater. And so I recommended that you know about that.
Well, they're asking for a waiver on the drainage study, which would reveal something like that. It would bring all that to light, so we might want to actually ask them to.
Because I'm aware of an abutter with water in the basement and very high level of groundwater.
May I ask what a butter that is?
No, I don't think that's, I don't know any names should be thrown around at the meeting.
I asked that only so I could talk to that person about their experience, not to try to get to the change of mind.
I'm gonna let you work that out away from the table.
Should not have been named the way it was.
And I'm not really in favor of the checklist item number 6 on the erosion control standards, because anybody that builds a new house there is gonna need erosion controls around the property site to prevent water and silt from running onto any neighbor's land. So that is something that you may want to reconsider a waiver for, because erosion controls are a standard part of any new construction. Because you're going to be moving.
Is the waiver for an erosion control plan or to not do erosion control on the site? It's for the plan, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, the plan would only have to show silt fence 4
Yeah.
sides of the property. I mean, that's a pretty simple edit to the
Yeah.
plan. Just show the erosion control on your plan.
Right.
On the sidelines, where your sidelines would be, show that you're gonna have silt fence with hay bale barriers or whatever your engineer would recommend, but you can show that on your plan and not ask for the waiver. If you show the erosion controls on the plan.
Do I take that to mean a denial of waiver number 6? and a
It's not
requirement?
denied, I'm just saying that we're not gonna grant waivers at this point.
Okay.
If there's a way for you to avoid asking for the waiver, I think you should try to work them into your plan, and then you don't have to ask for the waiver.
And understood, so the comments you made were with respect to checklist item number 6 and to show the erosion control on the
I
plan.
would just show the erosion controls on the plan, on the perimeter of the plan, and that would prove to the board that once your site plan is signed, you have to follow all the terms and conditions of the site plan, which would include erosion controls on the sidelines. Because on a tiny lot like this, you end up stripping most all of the lot to work it, and you don't have much vegetation left to prevent water from leaving the site.
Show erosion control of the plan, sounds pretty easy to
Board
me.
members, any other stuff for the applicant before we open a public hearing on this? You will have an opportunity to come back up. Seeing none, I'll ask you to hang in your seats, and I will ask for, open the public hearing. Are you folks here to speak tonight? Okay, so why don't you take your seats back in the gallery?
Excuse me, Tim, are you asking him to do a drainage study? I wasn't sure.
I'm not sure yet.
Okay,
We have to discuss
okay.
this with the board.
My name's Neil Smith. I am a butter. I live at 8 Wall Street. If you look
Are you on this map here, Mr. Smith?
I'll explain my location. If you look on the topographic plan, where the land surveyor stamped it,
Yep.
that's my lot.
Wait a minute, the lot with the word site pointing to it is your lot?
Where the land surveyor stamped and signed.
Oh,
right here.
Yes.
Yeah, I got
My name is not on the lot, but
Oh, okay.
Show me where you're talking about, Brian.
you. Right here.
I don't see it, where am I looking?
I think you're covering it.
That right there?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so your lot is right here. And what's your name again, sir?
Neil Smith.
Neil Smith. All right, now we know who you are. And what's your map? You happen to know your, I have too
Map
much
of
to
lot?
ask. I don't even
I'm
know my
afraid I
own
don't
map of
know.
lot.
No.
Why am I asking?
That's true.
Okay, Mr. Smith, now please continue, now that we know where you are.
Okay. I want to start by saying, because the lots meet dimensional standards for single-family homes, I have no objection to the subdivision as long as it is for single-family homes. I do have some concerns about drainage, and you've already talked about this quite a bit, and I will corroborate the fact that there is a high water table in this area, and much of it is the result of a pan layer. And if you look at the topography of the lot, much of the lot drains toward my lot.
Wow, that's a shocker.
Yes, and we know it goes downhill.
Do we even have a topographic map on our desk?
Yes,
No.
that's that first plan
just
that
off
you're
the
referring to.
property. The topo is
There's
just on the
contouring on it.
property. It's not off.
That, you mean the one line, one or two lines right there?
So you got 350,
There's 2 foot contour.
252, it's
Okay, so the water does run towards Mr. Smith's lot. Corroborate that.
Now, with the increased impervious, I'm concerned how that's going to be handled. And I know you're going to be requesting a report and so forth. But on top of that, there's no street drainage per se. It's all sheet flow. It goes into the street and down swales. Mr. Forster just informed me that the town is planning within the next 5 years, fingers crossed, that Ivy Street will be rebuilt, regraded, perhaps even drainage put in. But until that time, I'm concerned what's going to happen. How can we control that? Especially when you're talking about a situation where you do have a pan layer and a high groundwater table. Because you can't just expect that it's going to percolate into the soil and disappear. It's going to go someplace. And where the pan layer, if you put a house in, you dig around, you put pervious material around the house, where's it going to go? It's just going to travel that pan layer and go into that house. So that is a big concern of mine. The other thing I want to point out too, that this board may want to take into consideration, and that's that Ivy Street, along the frontage of this 2-lot subdivision, is 40 feet wide. East of this, the remaining part of Ivy Street is 50 feet wide. And if you look at it, there's a faint line it doesn't dimension it, but it's 10 feet south of the northeast corner of Mr. Forcier's property. And that's the 50-foot wide right-of-way. Did I make that clear? Does everybody understand what I'm saying?
We can see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what's planned on how Ivy Street is going to be regraded, rebuilt, drainage put in. I have no clue. But I can see a water line, and it's in the northerly part of the street. I can see a gas line, and that's in kind of the southerly part of the street. And if you look just off to the northeast corner of this lot, you'll see where there's a sewer manhole in the middle of the road.
Yep.
It would seem to me that drainage would probably be on the south side of this road, if they were to put it in.
We
Possible?
put drainage on both sides.
Yeah. Don't know.
The main trunk line will be on one side. So you are correct. This was supposed to be on the road plan for this year. It did not make the cut because of last year's projects spilling into this year and just budgetary and staffing. We're hoping it's next year. Off the top of my head, I don't know exactly where all the drainage is going, but it will be on both sides of the road. We'll have catch basins on both sides. I don't know which side the trunk would go down. It probably would go down the north side. But
My point in making this statement is just that you have an opportunity, if you needed to, for grading and drainage purposes, perhaps request an easement from the applicant, even if it's just a construction easement, just to simplify that drainage installation.
We could probably do it in the 40-foot right-of-way. That's what the majority of,
Generally speaking, we don't have back and forth during public comment.
sorry.
That's fine. I appreciate your input, but if you could just relay your comments, and then we'll discuss them beyond. But back and forth at public comment is something we don't generally do.
Okay.
So you're concerned, I have drainage concerns, but you still have no objection for a single-family home, is what you
No,
said.
I do not. I object to
Anything
that.
else
And
you'd
yes,
like
I
to
do
add?
have concern about drainage.
Anything else, Neil, you'd like to add?
No, sir.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Too.
Everybody all set in the crowd? Come on, we want to hear you.
She's gonna speak for it.
I spent
I bet-
many, many hours in this room, no.
All right, so I'm going to close the public hearing. As I said at the last application, this is only closed until we have another meeting, which I assume we're going to. I can't see this. I don't see this happening tonight, but anyway. Okay, board members, concerns and questions. The applicants are welcome to come back up to the table if you'd like, please. What do we want to do with the request for a drainage study? What's the thought on that? It seems like a lot that might require a drainage study. Board members?
I think a drainage study seems appropriate in this instance. If there are concerns, maybe this is an instance where there could be some sort of a compromise, that it's not necessarily a full-blown drainage study like what you're seeing for a larger subdivision, but at least enough to demonstrate that, you know, the increased impervious area is not going to be resulting in an impact on the abutting parcels.
So you're going to have to speak with your engineer about what you're going to do with your water on your site, basically. Now, a drainage study normally is much more involved and expensive. As Colleen stated, it doesn't have to be a full-blown drainage study. We just need some discussion with your engineer on how this lot is going to maintain the water that this lot is going to generate and stay on this lot and not be going to the neighbors. Because that definitely is something that we would not approve of. We don't want someone else to be the beneficiary of someone else's water. Even though the land does run downhill, one of our regulations for a lot of projects is your pre-development runoff, which is whatever's coming off this lot right now, cannot be exceeded by the post-development runoff. So if so many cubic feet per minute of water leaves the site as it is, after you build this house and get all done with it, you can't exceed that number, whatever that number was. So you're going to have your engineer address that for you before any decisions can be made.
Mr. Chair, the drainage study is also important due to the landscaping that's going to be required pre and post. I would estimate 2/3 of this new parcel is heavily forested, very mature trees. So removal of all those trees is going to re-contour the land.
But we don't have landscaping requirements for a house.
But I'm,
I think
doing
the
all
comment
the
was
tree
for drainage.
removal.
Yeah.
I agree with your comments. I just want to make sure the applicant didn't misconstrue the landscaping requirements statement. Okay,
May I make one comment?
please.
I appreciate the board considering something less than a full-blown expensive, what I hear is an expensive drainage study. And I appreciate that very much. A couple questions about that. Is that something you would expect to be depicted on the plan? Something in the form of a written submission from the engineer or something else?
A drainage study is generally a document that is prepared by the engineer that explains the pre-development and post-development runoff. Sometimes it's a few pages, sometimes it's more, but they do have to do some field work to make a determination on what the water is now, and then look at all the square footage of roofs and driveways and other impervious surfaces and what that's going to generate, and how do you mitigate that water to not exceed the pre-development runoff. And an engineer knows how to do all that stuff. They've got all the tables and charts and slide rules to handle that.
And if I tell them I need a drainage study, then they're going to go ahead and do a full-blown drainage study. But if I tell them I need something less than that, they should have an understanding what to do there.
That's between you and the engineer.
Okay.
And you're welcome to have them come into a meeting and we can lay it on the line for them if that's what you would prefer us to do. If you,
But shouldn't Scott
have
Right.
maybe some
Well, Scott will review
discussion.
it.
But shouldn't Scott have some discussion beforehand, because they need some guidance on exactly what the board is looking for?
Well, I don't know if that's appropriate, Barbara.
I suspect that we have applicants all the time who have called DPW before we see anything and have said, what is exactly it is that you guys are looking for? And I'm
Yes.
seeing Scott nodding his head.
So,
And especially
Mr.
this
Blood's
site, there
property.
is not, this
Move
is,
that.
there's water and sewer here. A lot of the drainage studies we have deal with site things that are not applicable to here. So if you have an engineer that you're working with and you two want to get on the phone with Scott, I'm sure after you look at the drainage study requirements, I'm sure that there's a number of things that would not need to be done, because this really is a water table containment issue. That's really what you're talking about. And it's just begging the question, do you get to fill your pool naturally, or do you have to pay somebody to bring water in?
I'm actually losing water in that old pool.
All right, so the
That's
water,
where all the groundwater's coming.
Not that quickly. Not that quickly,
You should
but
retract that statement.
very slowly. I still can't find it either, but
It's
I will.
evaporation.
Yeah, exactly.
It's definitely beyond evaporation. I'm pretty sure of that.
and the same thing for the erosion control. I think we're talking pretty limited.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be, like I stated, just show the erosion plan controls on the site plan,
Silt fencing and,
hay bales or something.
right, yeah.
There's other ways to do erosion control. Your engineer knows all the different methodologies. There's at least 4 that I know of. And wetlands delineation, if there's no wetlands on the lot, you don't have to delineate them.
Yeah.
That is why I request a waiver.
That's why you requested the waiver.
So that we're good
Not
on
a
that
problem,
one.
not a problem.
We're good on 1 out of 4.
As long as you can,
No, I think that the turnaround,
Oh yes.
yeah, I don't have any problems with 1 and 2.
no.
Okay.
Yeah, you got 2.
It's
All
3
right.
and 4 that you need to try to do a little work on before you come back with another.
And I will try to have a call with the town engineer, Scott. We did talk.
Yes, we did, yeah.
And also, you, just so you know, you do need to check with the sewer department regarding if you want to do a duplex, because that's going to be increased capacity, and the sewer department has to just tell you whether there's capacity in that line to accept a duplex or not. We don't know what size, I don't know what size pipe is in the road. If it's a small pipe and it's working at capacity, you have to go to the sewer department and talk with them about if there's capacity for this project.
I have been before the sewer commission and they did approve my prior plan, but I recognize they don't know about a duplex necessarily.
Yeah. So just so you know, that's just another step you can get involved.
Does the board want the plan that comes back to show that there's a buildable area for a single family house?
Yes, the proposed duplex wording has to be removed.
And I will put a single family in place and address other comments.
You don't even have to show a house, you have to show a buildable area for a home. You don't have to put a house print on there like you show
So
the,
that's easier for you to do.
Yeah, just literally remove the word proposed duplex. Or, do you see the building envelope on there? I could just put that. But I understand.
if you can show a building envelope where a building can sit and meet the setbacks, that's what we need to see to prove that a single-family house would fit with setbacks that meet the requirements.
It's literally a block.
I think it's actually on the plan right now. If you look around the duplex, it has the building envelope depicted. I'm just going to remove the footprint
house
of the
itself,
duplex
the whole house.
and bring it back after I get a variance.
Correct.
I know, I recognize you're not
Any
the
other
zoning board.
public works comments that they need to work on, Scott, before the?
No, they were pretty basic.
Okay.
So more kind of plan cleanup, if I remember correctly. I recommended the infiltration trenches with the house overhangs. Obviously, stormwater will now be handled from the recommendation of their engineer. And knowing that there's high water tables, the infiltration trenches likely wouldn't work anyway. So, which I wasn't
Well, that's what
aware of the water
yeah, that
tables.
would flush that out.
Yeah, so.
Can you stop using that word when we're talking about drainage?
What, flush?
Flush.
First time I ever said it.
No, that's the 3rd time this meeting.
Really? Must be on my mind.
It's typical of the sewer department.
And just so as you understand too, a duplex would be double the accessibility fee. 5,000 per unit.
I recognize that.
Okay, why don't you do that? Any other questions for these folks?
Yeah.
Phil?
Yeah, the only thing is, I noticed on the front page, there's a proposed sewer tie-in in there. In the past, on some of the properties in this area, when they've come before us, I've brought up the fact of private lines. Sometimes there's private lines. A lot of homeowners in this area of town have a problem, and then they find out that it's a private line. It's because they contact even though it's Manchester Water, their property is serviced by a private.
The water lines.
Right, the water line. And when we had the one up off of, well, not too far from this one off of St. A's, where we had, we brought up that, put it on the plan. That
So-
it is to document, to put on there that it's a municipal line or a private line.
So if they contact Manchester Waterworks, as the
They should
as
be.
the comments state, they will determine whether they are trying to hook up to a private line or the city's water line.
Correct.
Okay, well, that's something you'll have to figure out.
And it is a Manchester Water, city water line.
No, okay, I understand you may pay the bill to Manchester Water, but if you have a problem with your water, and when it comes time to get it repaired, then you find out that it's a private line and Manchester isn't gonna do it. You're responsible for the
Well,
whole.
it looks like it connects to a main in the road, so I doubt if it, I mean, he has to make that determination with the city.
Right, no, I understand.
I
I
know
mean,
what
we had
you're
the same thing on Orchard Street. When you got up to the top of Orchard Street, I think it was the top 5 houses on Orchard, it was private line.
Right.
It was a Manchester water line, but it got up to a point, from there up, it was all private line.
Okay, anything else, folks, from the table? So, Mr. Forcier, how long do you think you're gonna wanna talk with your engineer about this stuff, and when do you think you'd like to get back in here to bring a revised plan after you've heard tonight's comments?
Sure. In part depends on Scott's timeline, but I'll be calling him tomorrow morning. But I think that there are some.
On Friday.
Call me in the morning, I will be off tomorrow afternoon, so.
Deal.
So-
So I do recognize that some plan revisions need to be made, some comments that weren't talked about tonight, but are in some plan cleanup that we talked about that I can get done. I don't know the surveyor's timetable. As much as I want to say the very next meeting, I recognize it's probably 2 meetings away.
Good answer.
So,
Because she has to get the packets out.
So
So
it's-
we're a week
it's-
ahead of time.
what is today's date?
Today is the
11th.
11th.
So it's less than 30 days from now.
So it would be to the June 8th.
Right, but I'm saying, I'm just advising the applicant, it's less than 30 days.
The next meeting deadline?
No,
Yes,
the
the
meeting is less
deadline.
than 30 days, but the deadline is when, Joanne?
Well, he doesn't really have a deadline. He needs to get us everything, at least, like, it's not written in the regulations, but we need that week to mail it, and
Right.
then we need at least, like, what would you say, another 4 days, maybe, to
Yeah.
review.
At least.
So back it up a week to June 1st, so you're talking May 29th, that's 2 weeks from now. I don't think he can have everything done in 2 weeks'
So I would
timeframe to submit.
suggest June 8th.
I don't think he's gonna be able to meet the June
You don't
8th
think so?
meeting. I don't know, does anybody else disagree with that? Considering you gotta have everything submitted to you by the 28th or the 29th of May?
And that's Memorial Day.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Oh,
you're
that's
not
right,
gonna get a
holiday.
drainage study done in that short period of time.
Then you can go to the second meeting in June.
So are we gonna have a motion for a date certain, or how do we do this, Barbara?
Let me see what the date is.
You need to
June
continue
22nd.
it to a date certain.
If I could make a comment?
Please.
No other abutters have showed up tonight but the Smiths. I know them well. I'll make sure they know about the new date if I do have to move it. I'd like to go to the sooner date if possible, recognizing not the next one, but perhaps
All right, well,
the
if
June
you're not-
date. I will
The 22nd?
let you know
No,
on the
he
day.
wants to go, he wants to go to June 8th, and he'll let the Smiths know if he doesn't
Okay.
make it.
All right.
So it'll be your obligation to notify, obviously, planning won't have your stuff in time if you don't get it there in time. So we need to make sure that abutters know not to come in, Joanne. How do we-
If I end up canceling on the June 8th, I'll make sure that the Smiths know. And I can at least, most of the abutters I'm very friendly with, I'll try to get to all of them. If they're not here today, I don't expect them to come to the next one, but I'll do my best.
So we should have everything by May 25th.
May 25th, and if I do, we would go forward on the date,
We would go forward for the
And
8th of June.
June 8th.
I would strongly advise that you have your engineer at the next meeting, because if you're gonna have a drainage study to discuss, you cannot speak to it because you did not prepare the plan. I know it costs you money to have an engineer here, but it's always to your benefit to get questions answered, rather than you have to come back for another meeting, because you have to go ask more questions and come back, and it becomes cumbersome. So
Okay.
consider that and do what you want with it.
And when you talk to them, let them know what meeting you're talking about, because they all have schedules too.
Good to know.
Okay, so does somebody want to make a motion to continue to June 8th?
So moved.
Seconded by?
Second.
Okay, motion to continue this application to June 8th by Barbara, seconded by Phil. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion passes. So why don't you get your stuff in on time?
If I learn that it's not gonna happen, I'll let you know as soon as I can.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You still have my number?
Yeah, all right, can I just take it one more time?
Change it.
What is it?
I went in
What's your
and
question?
it's
8990.
250.
Don't say it on TV.
Yeah, just stop, everybody.
Don't say it on TV.
Sean, I'll find you, I'll
It's
find you.
just an extension
Out.
of the town number.
Out.
No, extensions don't work at DPW.
They don't?
They got rid of them. They're still on our cards too.
Oh, I didn't know that. No
Tim,
one
don't
told
forget
us.
to sign those.
Very much. I will call.
I just called the other day and it worked.
They work internally.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
They want outside calls going through the front desk now.
Oh.
If we have no other business, Tim, we'll...
No, I'm not done with you guys.
Okay.
Maybe sign these papers, I'm signing these papers.
Oh, that's right, we need this paper signed.
I think Tim's.
I would like to have an opinion from the planning board members. If we really should be the planning board police and look at applications after we've granted conditional approvals and find out that the applicants are not complying with the conditions of approval as stated in their approvals. I can think of at least a couple of applicants who are doing stuff beyond the scope of their approval, and does this board want to be bothered bringing them in?
So that's actually, according to our development regulations, that's actually a function of the code enforcement officer.
So what do we need to do? Make it clear to you, Joanne, that we have a problem with these applications, and we would request that the code enforcement officer go out?
Yes, and then I can give them the list.
So do we do this in public, or do we do this privately?
No,
Has to be in public, right?
public, yeah.
Okay. Anybody have one besides me? I've got at least one. Okay, we'll go first.
Well, I guess I'm confused by your language as to going beyond, but, so let me,
Well,
I mean, I have an issue with parking with one thing that's going on, but.
That's probably the same one I'm thinking of.
Okay.
So we had an application for a landscaping business on, what's that, Daniel Plummer down there?
Oh, no,
Rob?
this is a different one, yeah.
Okay.
I know which one you're
The
talking about.
landscaping company got permission for us for a landscaping retail and yard on Daniel Plummer Road. And it seems to me the parking areas are way beyond what we approved. As I remember, we approved for a couple of trailers to be parked down there. As a matter of fact, we even discussed whether they were going to be used as advertising with the names of the applicants' names on the sides of the trailer. Now I see that the parking lot has even moved even closer to 114. So I would request that the compliance officer look at the plan and see if the applicant is in compliance with the plan for the additional parking areas.
Were you observing landscaping material storage areas?
No, because all that was included on a site plan as I remembered for that site. It's just that they don't believe they got the board's approval to create those large parking areas that vehicles are all parked in right now.
Yeah,
It
that's very
appears
visible
that
to 114, yeah.
the the boundary of the parking appears to be, I think the better phrasing of this issue would be, the boundary of the parking appears to be expanded beyond what was on the plan.
And that's what I was trying to say in Barbara's words. But she has legal speak, and I just have to say it speak.
Well, you need to identify what he's, it's a boundary, it's.
Okay.
You know the address since I just told it was on Dignity Corner.
Yep.
Anybody else have anything that they have observed?
No, that's fine.
Okay, nobody else is gonna stick their foot in their mouth like I did? Because I don't really care. Okay, anything else for this board before we, you're gonna be working on an impact study? I saw a memo from Derek,
Yes.
In the
He
email?
wants me to get some three quotes.
but I thought that he had, he put the funding in, but you have to find the people to do the study.
Right.
And then,
Expected
once we have
amount.
the 3 quotes, then.
We can move forward.
Look for-
How are we doing with our development regulars with Hoyle
We
Tanner?
have the first draft, and I have not had any time whatsoever, I don't know.
I
I've
understand.
got through like 10 pages.
Yeah.
and
That's
it.
understandable,
But
we
once things
understand.
slow down a little bit, we'll get to it.
Do you want the board members to look at them, or do you want to do the first look over?
They wanted to have Scott and I and Eric do the first round.
Okay.
And then,
Right,
because
then
they didn't feel it was really
Then
ready
you
for
can-
the board.
I don't
Flush
know
out
if Eric's
the other
gonna get a
ones.
chance to look at it.
It's just you and me.
Yeah, I talked to Eric about it, and we've got some big things that he's working on right now that we
Okay.
don't want to pull him off of, so.
That's fine.
All right, we understand everybody's busy.
Yeah.
All right, well, we've sort of covered it on both. What is the status of a zoning code enforcement officer?
So I myself am confused. So they took, I believe, when Nancy left, the code enforcement officer position was advertised at one point.
Right, 'cause
But
it
it
was-
was advertised to be like a second building inspector / health officer, I think. And I don't know if they interviewed anyone or not, but as far as I know, it still stands with that same configuration and
I'd like to
there's
make a
been no action
motion
with
to
it.
authorize the planning director to contact the town administrator by email to request what the current status of filling a zoning code enforcement officer position is.
So the motion's been made by Barbara to authorize Joanne to inquire about a code enforcement officer status.
And in the email, present that the planning board believes this is a very important position.
David, do you have something to say?
That the response Joanne should distribute administratively to the board,
Yeah, I would do that.
and not wait for a meeting.
Right. Before you vote, so Jack, who's now the building inspector, he's been doing some zoning. I know he's been attending some zoning.
I don't have
but
any idea. I'm expecting an answer will address
Okay.
that.
Okay.
And it's been a long time since we were in a position that a building inspector had time to do zoning code enforcement. It's been a long time. So I would be
Yeah,
shocked
they're
that somebody
really busy.
actually has the time to do it now.
Was
So-
there a second to that?
I'll second.
I'm waiting to finish the discussion before I ask for a second. So who seconded it? Colleen? So there's a motion to direct the planning director to ask the town administrator about code enforcement hiring position situation. Anybody want to discuss the motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Whatever I was supposed to say? Okay, motion passed. All right, anything else? Then we're going to go straight to Phil.
Motion
Well, I
to
have
adjourn.
Okay, Brian,
I have one
please.
quick thing, it's quite, I think more clerical, but on our website, they have my term incorrect.
Oh, okay.
So I'm-
Which way? More or less?
Well, I can't go back in time. I wasn't elected in 2022.
Yeah, but that's the term you're filling.
Oh, that's
But I'm going to do
true.
a 2-year term. It's a 3-year term, it says here.
It is.
Because you got the
Yeah.
balance of 22, which you weren't here for, because it's been vacant since 22.
It's the term.
The
It's
term
a 3-year
itself.
term. But
Oh.
you got a point, you applied for the last 2 years of a 3-year term.
So that's why you're listed as 22 to 20.
So that is correct.
Right, the term you're sitting in is
Okay,
22 to
that's very-
25.
that's
That's
very
the
confusing.
difference, that's the.
Okay, all right.
You can't go back in time and vote, you just have to.
No, I know. I was like, it's confusing, okay.
Are you clear now?
Mr.
No,
Chair.
right?
If you guys think
It's all
yeah.
good, Brian.
Okay,
Thank you.
fair enough.
David?
Were we supposed to discuss Mr. Blood's,
No, Joanne said,
Mr. Blood contacted me and has changed his mind again. So he just said, you know, he'll be in touch at some point in time.
no action tonight?
no action tonight, but it stands as we agreed.
Right.
That he was gonna draw a line straight down.
Now, whether they come in with plans for your signature,
I'm not signing anything that's different than what we agreed
no,
on
I'm
unless we have
saying
another
they
meeting.
may not even show up with the plans to be
Fine with
signed
me.
at this point, I don't know.
No, whatever, it's the.
Yeah.
It's their decision to change their mind before the plan has been signed, and if the plan is different, you have to reapply. And
I sat down and met with him and his engineer before I wrote that memo, and he seemed good with it, so I was surprised to hear, just like 2 days ago, that he changed his mind.
So, for clarification, if he decides to come in with something different, we have to renotice and have a whole
Right.
new
Yeah.
public hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah, right,
At all expense of the applicant.
right.
He knows that, right?
Well, the
You better tell him,
engineer
because I don't
knows
probably,
it, but,
that may
yeah,
help him with his decision.
it sounds like he can't make a decision.
Well, that's too bad.
Well, I think he's got a lot of trade-offs he's dealing with.
Yeah.
And it's very sentimental to him, because
It's been a
it's been
family
in
for generations.
generations for his family.
Right.
We can't discuss the application tonight because it's not on the agenda.
Right, motion to adjourn.
Okay, anybody want a second?
Second.
Brian, okay, way to go, Brian.
Okay.
Is it 22 or 23?
Stop! Leave him alone.
24.
Correct, that's all I can do.
He can either take me or not, because either way. All right, there's a motion to adjourn by Phil. Anybody want to discuss it? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion passes. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Yeah.
Well, this is the...